Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen and her family harassed my girlfriend and I over a parking spot. Big mistake. After that, am I the jerk for filing a noise complaint about a single mom with a newborn? And after that, you should always pay your accountant, especially if you're hiding secrets from the IRS. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to harass anyone over a parking space. What would I need a parking space for? I never leave this room. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen and her family harassed my girlfriend and I over a parking spot. Big mistake. I live on a cul-de-sac where I rent a back house from my landlords. There's another elderly tenant who lived inside the landlord's house I was very close with that we'll call Good Sir. I have these neighbors next to me who I had gotten along with for as long as I had lived here before lockdown. The husband, we'll call him Mr. Chill because he had been really cool with me. My neighbors have 3 cars between them. 2 belong to Mr. Chill and his wife. We'll call her Mrs. Hypocrite, and the other car belongs to their daughter. When lockdown hit, Mr. Chill's family, for some reason that didn't make sense to me, suddenly stopped parking their cars in the driveway and would park them all on the curb in front of their house, as well as daughter taking the spot I usually parked in. Finally, after a few months of this going on, I see their daughter outside and I ask her if she wouldn't mind sharing the spot that I used to park in with me, explaining my situation with being overworked and exhausted from my job. She gives me an annoyed look and just responds by saying, "I use it." I realize I'm wasting my time. I tell her never mind and I go inside. Not even 5 minutes later, there's a knock at the door, and it's Good Sir, letting me know that the neighbors want to talk with me. Mrs. Hypocrite is standing there all upset, asking me what the problem is. I explain to Mrs. Hypocrite what I said to their daughter, and she apologizes for coming off so angry and says, "You know, street parking is what it is. It's first come, first serve, and we're not parking to try and give anyone a hard time." The conversation goes nowhere, but we do end it peacefully. About a week later, I'm parked in my spot for a change, and my girlfriend comes over to visit. It's summertime and it's hot outside. Later that evening, I get a knock on my door and it's Good Sir. He says the neighbors want to talk, and I see Mr. Chill standing right there, and he just asks if my girlfriend could move her car because she's got a bunch of curb behind her, but not enough for another car to fit. Before I can even say anything, Mrs. Hypocrite shows up out of nowhere and goes off saying, "I'm sick of going back and forth about this. She is double parked and there's not enough room for another car to fit. I understand that she's your girlfriend and she's visiting, but I believe that residents should get priority parking first. It looks like you guys are trying to save the parking for yourselves, and I'm not dealing with this anymore. She needs to move her car." I'm in complete shock and have a lot that I wanted to say, but I don't, and I just go inside to ask my girlfriend to move. She thinks they're hypocrites and moves just because she feels like that's all they have to feel proud of in their lives. The only reason I gave into them is just so my landlords do not get involved and risk it turning into them not wanting to renew my lease with me. Otherwise, I would have said something. Funny enough, even though they got upset at my girlfriend for double parking, their daughter is the queen of doing that on our cul-de-sac without Mrs. Hypocrite telling her anything. Last year in November, Good Sir wasn't doing too well and went into hospice care. He gave me his car as a gift and a thank you for being family to him. I now had 2 cars, 2 spots, and an idea. Enter petty malicious compliance. Mrs. Hypocrite said that street parking is first come first serve and that residents should have priority over the parking. Well then, so be it. I only need to use 1 car and the other can just stay parked. Since I am a resident, I decided to park whichever car I'm not using in the spot that I would normally park at and swap them out every 2 weeks in rotation. My girlfriend parks in the reserved spot Good Sir used to. The daughter, her boyfriend, and Mrs. Hypocrite have not touched that spot since I started doing this, since one of my 2 cars is always there. As a little bonus too, Mrs. Hypocrite put one of their cars they aren't using back in the driveway, and when there's a party going on and all the parking is taken up, the spot in front of their house is sometimes open, and since, again, I am a resident and the guests have all taken the other spots, well, I guess I do need a spot to park after all, right? Sorry, Mrs. Hypocrite, and to the daughter. I guess you'll just have to park around the block and take a nice walk to get to your house. I'm only following what you believe the parking rules should be. Am I the jerk for filing a noise complaint about a single mom with a newborn? I, 26 female, live in an apartment. I'm a resident in a medical profession and I work 100-hour weeks, plus a lot of additional hours of studying and paperwork. I hardly sleep as it is. I cannot wear earplugs because I need to be able to hear my phone when on call or if I'm called about a patient under my care. This happens frequently and I never turn off my phone and only update it when I'm at work. Just for an idea about how strongly I'm attached to my phone. My downstairs neighbor had a baby last month. Since she came home from the hospital, I haven't slept through the night. I'm woken up every 1 to 2 hours by the baby, and this baby screams. I know the mom is trying her best. I'm sure she doesn't want to be woken up either, but I'm losing it. I fell asleep Thursday standing up in the middle of rounds. My attending was not impressed, and I was reprimanded. My boyfriend has been encouraging me to file a complaint because it's not fair that I can't sleep. I've tried to talk directly to my neighbor to ask if she could stop walking around her whole apartment. I've tried sleeping on my couch, which is better, but mom walks the baby around the apartment. Or maybe if there could be some soundproofing done. But every time I've had the chance to go to her apartment, she's got a note about the baby sleeping and please don't knock. I do not have her number or any other way to contact her. I feel weird about leaving a note and want to address it in person. So I spoke to my landlord Friday evening. I was very clear that I'm not trying to blame her. I just wanted to know if there could be some soundproofing done or something. The landlord said they would look into options. Well, Saturday I had a day off mandated because I'm now considered a risk to patients, which is causing a whole host of issues for me. I was sleeping and woke up to pounding and screaming. The mother was furious with me and kept screaming about how I'm selfish and trying to kick out a single mom, etc. Neighbors were watching and I kept trying to explain, but she and the baby just kept screaming. I lost it. I'm beyond exhausted and just screamed back. I told her that her baby is so loud she might cost me my job and that I just can't function anymore because of her and that soundproofing isn't the end of the world. If she can't soundproof, she should be considerate and buzz off from the apartment building. She started crying and left. I feel awful about it. I know I shouldn't have yelled. I know that makes me the jerk. But am I the jerk for filing a complaint? My impression was the landlord was going to fix the issue, not kick her out. I don't want that. Edit. Thank you for the replies. Just to address a couple points. 1. Yes, working these hours is insane. It's not okay. But unfortunately, the way this field works is you either get on with it or they will fire you, and there goes the last decade of my life. Matching with another residency is next to impossible. Besides, I want this career. Hopefully it'll change as the younger generation pushes for change. 2. I live on the top floor of my building. I've been here 5 years. There's been a few families with kids, including babies, that have lived here over the years. Life sounds have never been an issue. This baby is loud and it's constant. The baby will scream every 2 hours or so and can go on for over an hour most of the time. I do not think the mom can just tell the baby to be quiet. I want solutions so I can sleep and that's it. I've tried soundproofing my apartment, short of tearing up the floor and installing insulation of some kind. I've done everything that I could find online. It has not helped. I hear the baby crying, by the way, when the mother walks the baby around the apartment. I don't hear her walking. When the baby is in the bedroom, I can sleep through the crying, but when the baby walks over my head, I cannot. I cannot just move. Firstly, finding the time to move or the money is impossible. I have to live 15 minutes from the hospital, which is why I can't stay at my boyfriend's, and I'm lucky my landlord has kept my rent down. He's rented to many residents from this hospital for decades and cuts us a break, since I can't afford anything else in this area. I might be a doctor that works a lot, but I don't even make $40,000 a year before taxes, and then take about half of that to our student loans, so moving to a house isn't an option. 4. Yes, I could sleep in an on-call room and do occasionally, but as people have said, the rooms are awful and they're not really quiet with all the other residents trying to work, sleep, etc. Plus, I think it's reasonable to want to go home and sleep when I can. I have to make food, do laundry, call family in private, and decompress alone. So driving home and doing that and driving back to sleep for the foreseeable future isn't going to work. 5. I don't wake up to vibrations. I need the sound. I've tried noise-canceling earbuds. I don't like the headphones. I can't get comfortable. But spend most of the night terrified they'll fall out and I won't hear my phone so I don't sleep. Missing a call is automatic grounds for termination, so the fear is very real for me. 6. My landlord called me earlier today and told me he heard about her coming to scream at me. He informed me he had no intention of evicting anyone. He spoke to her about when he could come and soundproof her apartment. He's been considering this for a while and has decided to bite the bullet and soundproof every apartment, starting with hers, as multiple people have mentioned this to him as well. She was never in danger of being evicted. I never wanted that either. Babies cry, but I didn't sign up for this. I've never had this issue in any apartment I've lived in. This is the first complaint I've made in over 5 years, besides my shower head breaking. I think soundproofing is valid. Maybe it'll disrupt this mother, but I've decided I don't care. Long term, this will be better for everyone. And yes, I'm the jerk for yelling at her. I snapped, and since everyone keeps saying this woman is exhausted and sleep deprived, so I should be understanding, I think the same can be said for me, since I'm awake when she's awake, so sleep deprivation on both ends probably led to very bad communication on both ends. Hopefully the soundproofing will resolve some issues. You work 100-hour weeks, plus a lot of additional hours of studying and paperwork? Not the jerk. I was thinking different and was about to question the hours. Apparently in the US, it's an 80-hour maximum, which is still well beyond any form of reason. But read enough that 100 hours a week isn't impossible, and you didn't say you were from the US anyway. The mother is not a jerk for having a crying baby, unless there's banging on the walls or she's putting the baby near the window to scream out so you hear everything. She's not the jerk either. So while we all decide between whether the employee of the horrible company is the jerk or the young mother who had the baby, the real jerk gets off judgment-free. In fact, there are two. First jerk, obviously your employer, without question. What they're doing should be illegal, and that's not hyperbole. It should be. The other jerks are the people that build a set of flats and apartments that don't even have the barest of soundproofing to muffle the cries of a baby that isn't even 1 month old yet. Their lungs just aren't that big to make that kind of noise that should carry if the landlords and property owner actually built and maintained decent properties for actual humans to live in without losing their sanity. So yeah, forget judging between someone overworked to the point of passing out while standing up and the young mother with the 1-month-old infant. Both of you aren't the jerks for trying to function. Not the jerk. People make noise, but it is also okay to ask those people to do things to mitigate that noise. I live in New York City and have talked to neighbors about weird noises or putting a rug down, or when I took the bar exam, I let 2 of my neighbors know and asked them to just not have a party like that weekend. Apartment living doesn't mean that you just put up with everything. It means you figure out how to coexist, and that goes both ways. I just had a new neighbor move in above me, and she is loud just existing. She came to ask me for something, and I asked her about putting rugs down, and she looked at me like I was a jerk. Until she heard her dad stomping in her apartment. She was in mine. And they went and got a rug. Problem solved. Yeah, maybe leaving her a note would have been ideal, but it is also an appropriate thing to talk to your landlord about. Not kicking her out, but asking about soundproofing options. She could have come to your door and acted like a rational person too, even if upset, and she started out screaming, so you matched her energy. I'm curious, what do you expect her to do? OP. I can sleep better in the living room on my couch if the baby stays in the bedroom. We're both in 1-bedrooms with identical layouts. I was hoping she could maybe just walk in the bedroom when the baby cries instead of the whole apartment. Walking around with a crying baby is often what helps them calm down. Also, she might need a bottle or whatever from the kitchen when the baby is crying. You can hardly tell her not to move around her own apartment. No jerks here. You chose to live in an apartment, which means you're going to hear noise. It sounds like the bigger issue is that your schedule does not work with your living situation. Additionally, I don't mean to be the jerk by saying this, but if you are that tired that you're being given mandated days off, is there really nothing else to try? Stay with your boyfriend. Try and get your paperwork and studying done with headphones in while the baby is crying and sleep when it calms. Why don't you soundproof your apartment? That's generally what people do when they have issues with noise, rather than asking the noise itself to stop. Well, what do you think? Was OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Sleep is a wonderful thing. I think we can all get a little antsy when we don't get enough of it. You should always pay your accountant, especially if you're hiding secrets from the IRS. My buddy is an accountant, and he has his own firm. His biggest clients are small to medium-sized businesses. Well, he had a client who owned 4 different clubs and bars in 2 different cities. Client was always shady, always slow on payment, etc. I was also a customer of one of the bars. They had poker games that I would play in on Thursdays. Well, one day I'm at my buddy's house having a few beers, and he's complaining about non-payment from a client. I ask who. He doesn't want to say, but it's really bugging him because it's a significant chunk of change. He then says the name. We'll call him Scott. I'm like, wow, Scott isn't paying you? He then says Scott is saying business is way down, and I think that's odd because I've been going to one of his places and every Thursday it's packed. My buddy looks at me and goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, he does this new cash discount thing, 15% off your tab if you pay cash." My buddy goes, "Really?" I tell him about my experience at Scott's bar, and eventually the topic changes. A few weeks later, my buddy calls me up and says, "You going to Scott's bar to play poker?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I join?" "Sure." He joins, we get a few drinks in us, lose our money at poker, my house is closer, and he decides to crash there. On the way over, he breaks down his theory. He thinks Scott is vastly underreporting his revenue. The reason why he suspects Scott is offering cash discount is because cash is easier to hide. He says he's going to do a deep dive on Scott's finances. My friend tells me his plan is to go to all 4 of Scott's establishments, get the prices he charges at each place, piece together how much alcohol he's buying versus how much Scott is saying his revenue equates to. He looks up how much Scott is paying in payroll, rent, bills, etc. Keep in mind, he has access to all this info. And he determines that Scott is basically using his credit card receipts plus a little bit of cash to cover his cost of his business to include rent, payroll, insurance, liquor, food, etc. However, based upon that amount of products he's selling, he's suspecting Scott is underreporting his total income by about 35 to 40%. He goes back into Scott's books even more, and he figures in the last year, Scott has been underreporting his sales by 35 to 40%, but he's also been underreporting his sales by at least 20 to 25% for years on end. Simply put, there's no way Scott is going through as much product and as much alcohol as he's purchasing and having the revenue numbers that he's claiming. He's underreporting his sales to his accountant, which means he's also underreporting his earnings to the IRS. By this point, Scott owes my friend thousands of dollars that he hasn't paid. He said his total amount owed could buy a brand new motorcycle. He never gave me an exact number. My friend decides, forget getting repayment from Scott. Let's get repayment from the IRS through the whistleblower program. He's estimating Scott's underreported his revenue by millions of dollars over the course of years. The whistleblower fees he had earned from the IRS far outweigh the amount Scott owes him. The IRS will pay between 15 to 30% of what they collect. So, with the assistance of a lawyer, my friend gathers all the evidence he has of Scott's underreporting to the IRS and files a whistleblower report with the IRS. During this time, my friend fires Scott as a client for non-payment. Now this part gets boring because there's a lot of legal wrangling and back and forth, but it went on back and forth. However, eventually the IRS comes down on Scott, and they come down hard. It's estimated that Scott underreported his income to the IRS by about $4.5 million. Now, my friend never told me how much the IRS was able to recoup, but Scott's businesses are no longer his businesses, and $4.5 million would put the whistleblower reward at $675,000 to $1.3 million. Keep in mind, it's based on what the IRS collects, not the amount that's reported. I've asked my friend how much he got in the end, and he simply says, "I no longer have a mortgage, and it would have been much cheaper for Scott to just pay me." My takeaway? If I'm going to underreport my income by not reporting most of the cash payments I receive, I need to be sure to purchase a similar percentage of my supplies off the books. The IRS, like bureaucracy in general, is slow-moving for the most part. When someone owes them money, however, they strike hard, fast, and without mercy. Am I the jerk for ordering extra spicy food and embarrassing a date? I'm 20, female, half Chinese from my mom's side. I recently met a guy who's 23 on Tinder. When I told him my background, he started talking about how much he loves Chinese food and asked me out to dinner and for me to pick my favorite restaurant. There's a great, authentic Szechuan restaurant in our city, so I suggested that. I warned him that it's quite spicy. I have many American friends that say they love Chinese food, but what they really mean is they love Panda Express. Nothing wrong with that. I love American Chinese food too. I just wanted to make sure. He says it's fine. He's been to that restaurant before and it wasn't even that spicy. Then he made a joke about how he's offended. After this, I'm not so sure if it was a joke, that I don't think he can eat spicy food. He has a lot of Asian friends and he can handle spice better than some of them. We agreed on a date and went to this restaurant. I ordered my dish in Chinese. I look white from my dad's side, so if I ever order in English, I always get a pretty mild dish, but if I order in Chinese, they'll always make it spicier. My date told me to order for him too, and that he wanted it very spicy. He asked me in Chinese if he was sure, and I said yes, make it extra spicy, he can handle it. Food comes out and it's spicy. A couple of bites in and he starts struggling. I asked how the food is and he's still putting up a strong front, but he's barely eating it anymore. The waitress came over and started speaking to me in Chinese, asking how the food is, the usual small talk, and then said in English to him, "Too spicy?" and laughed a little. I didn't think she was being rude. She's probably used to people ordering food too spicy for them all the time, and I laughed a little too. The second she walks away, he asked what I said to her in Chinese and tells me I ordered it extra spicy to make fun of him because he ate at this place multiple times, but it was never like this, so I must have said something. I try to explain the whole ordering in English versus Chinese thing that many Asian restaurants will do, white spicy. It happens to me at Thai restaurants all the time unless I'm with a Thai friend. I tried a bite of his and it's the same, so he tried mine and he said how mine is way less spicy, but even after I trade with him, he basically only ate rice for the rest of the dinner. After I got home, he texted me saying that it was rude that I purposely ordered and spoke Chinese to the waitress in front of him, even though he asked me to order, that I wanted to embarrass him on purpose and that I ruined his meal just so I could laugh at him for not being able to handle it. I told some of my friends so we can laugh about this ridiculous date, but they think I should have known better that he was going to be able to handle that food because he probably always got white spicy and was just being a jerk trying to impress me or something, so I shouldn't have told the restaurant to make it extra spicy just to prove that he can't actually handle it. Not the jerk. I think he got what he asked for and shouldn't have bragged so much. Maybe next time he won't claim he can handle the spice. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her date? Please let us know. Oh man, I'm so hungry right now. Sproing goes the shocks. So once upon a year, I used to work for a large hardware chain that had aprons that beautifully matched my pumpkin figure. I worked in a busy flooring department and could share many a story, but the most delightful came from people overestimating the abilities of their vehicles. Pros would come in with appropriate vehicles and expectations, while do-it-yourselfers would occasionally come in with a disdain for aproned associates. Our location had seen enough such do-it-yourselfers come through that we had had a cover-yourself form that we had developed. Well, one fine day a man came in a rush and demanded the promptest of service, was annoyed at all project advice, and took offense when we had offered delivery service. He had chosen a nice slate tile and wanted a pallet for his house. We did up the sale and brought the pallet to the drive-up area. He pulled up in his new Ford F-150. No reinforced trailer, just the truck. That truck can carry roughly 2,000 pounds, give or take. The pallet was about 3,800 pounds. I told him that we would need to break open the pallet. He could take half right away and the other half later. The man went ballistic. They could hear him back in lighting. After some back and forth, and a few other managers coming by and strongly advising him that his truck could not take the pallet, he was screaming and foaming at the mouth. I shrugged, grabbed the form, discussed the portion saying he was ignoring our advice and he absolves our company and its employees of any responsibility for the outcomes. He signs it, settles down, and our forklift starts to bring the pallet down on this poor truck. Once the shocks had bottomed out, I called for the forklift operator to stop, showed the guy. The operator confirmed only half of the load weight had been transferred, and we gave him a final chance to reconsider. No such luck. I indicated for the forklift driver to continue, and there was no immediate catastrophic failure. The customer thinks we're all morons, while nearly everyone in the store, including many chuckling pro customers, are hanging out at the doors watching. The guy gets in his truck, calling out a thanks to us and calling us morons, then drives a whole 6 feet before, blam, shocks blew, and his rear axle bent in a bit. He came out at us screaming while I held the paper and pointed up at the security camera that looked over the area. He declined my offer to call a tow truck. Idiot doesn't know how to use Doordash. Let's be real. Doordash is a plague unto this world. Ridiculous service fees, abysmal customer service, bad practices, few protections for the workforce, and the gig economy in general is a parasite on the industry. Now that the end of lockdown is on the horizon, its necessity has diminishing demand and should be excised for all but the few desperate establishments. Come out and eat, everyone. We're almost there. End rant, onto the story. It's Memorial Day weekend. Graduations are in full swing, and there's optimism in the air. We are slam-a-bama jammin', and there's a healthy wait list. Phone is non-stop ringing, and the annoying Doordash bell tone won't stop blingin'. We're still running with the skeleton crew, and the bottleneck of a small kitchen means we're already hitting 1 hour plus wait times on our to-go orders right from the outset. The volume won't stop, so eventually we have to put a pause on Doordash orders once we hit the 90-plus minute mark. One of the last orders that snuck in before we shut it down was for a modest number of dishes that the customer had opted to pick up instead of using delivery. Hey, saves us like 20% off exorbitant fees. We've got our hustle in full swing, and this guy shows up to the window soon thereafter and says he's here to pick up an order for, let's say Karen. We're a little confused since none of the ready bags have that name, and no upcoming orders are listed under Karen. One of the hosts pulls up the Doordash tablet and points at the 20th order down on the list. Was it this order? As she gives off the items. Yes, he says excitedly. I guess you showed up quite a bit early. It's still got more than an hour till it's ready. What? The app said it would be ready in 30 minutes. Not sure how that happened. We set the timer on that one for an hour and a half. Oh no, my wife is going to be very upset. All right, well, it's still going to be about an hour. Sorry about that. He leaves in a huff. Back in the flow until someone shows up at our window again. She's got her arms crossed and hungry for a confrontation. Hello, I'm Karen. My husband just told me that our order is going to take over an hour. I remain stoic. Yup, it's behind about 20 other tickets. The app said it would be ready in 30 minutes. I'm not sure how that happened. When we confirmed the order, we set the wait time to an hour and a half. I pull up the tablet to show her that there's still 62 minutes left. Well, that's BS. I'm already here. So isn't there anything you can do to speed up the process? Unfortunately, no. There's already several tickets ahead of you, and we've got a full house of dine-in service. It's going to be about an hour. She continues stewing. Okay, I want to cancel my order. That's fine, I understand. I can pull your ticket off the line, but you're going to have to get in your Doordash app to cancel it so that you don't get charged. She stares down at her phone and angrily paces back to her car. My coworkers and I are looking at each other like, what the heck? Not even a few minutes later, she's back at the window looking more livid. She holds her phone out and starts jabbing her finger against the Doordash app. I can't log in. She starts handing it over to me like she wants me to do it. I step back. I can't do that for you. All I can do on my end is pull the ticket off the line. She tries one more desperate plea. I spent $70 here. Are you saying my money's no good? You can't make it faster? $70 is a weird flex when there's a few orders ahead of hers in the $200 to $300 range. I couldn't help but chuckle, which honestly is not the best customer service response. She points at me sternly and says, "You're a jerk," and wallows off. Guilty as charged, but also her problem, not mine. The entire staff and I are laughing about this because it's just so absurd. I give the owner a heads up and he laments. It feels like Doordash brings us nothing but headaches. Don't you know it, brother? 5 minutes later, we get a phone call. It's Karen, and she's a lot more conciliatory. Hi, I'm calling about earlier. If we still want our food, how long is it going to take? I'm easygoing. I don't take crap, but I'm also in the business of trying to make people happy, so I don't take anything personal. The app now says 56 minutes. Let's see. We're still looking at roughly about an hour. What? I also hear her husband fully guffawing on speakerphone in their car. We were just there 15 minutes ago and you told us an hour. Is this some game where you just keep telling us an hour until you eventually close and never make our order? We want our cash back. I was fully on board with trying to help them out, but now I give no hoots. They ask to speak with a manager. I skip the line and ask the owner if he wants to share a piece of his mind. He gladly accepts. He's a super chill, easygoing guy, and after being on the phone for 15 minutes with them, I see new veins in his forehead. How'd it go? I ask. I was explaining things to them, and she told me to shut up and listen. No one talks to me like that. He gathers himself. Okay, forget Doordash. We're deactivating the account. And like that, our prayers were answered. Doordash may account for 20% of our business, but 90% of our headaches. Good riddance. Neighbor thinks I'm the cleaner. So this happened Saturday morning. I live in a nice, brand new apartment. It's great, and the few neighbors I've met have been pretty chill, with a few exceptions. Earlier in the week, some new neighbors moved into one of the apartments. Their movers left the front door open, and while they were moving furniture in, a whole bunch of dead leaves from outside blew into the hallway. It was a huge mess. My apartment is literally the first door once you enter the building, and every time I've come home since then, I've been walking on dead leaves. We do have the cleaners who come in about once or twice a week to clean the common areas, but Saturday morning, as I was cleaning my apartment, I decided to pop outside and sweep up some of the leaves. I decided to leave most of them for the cleaners and only focus on the ones that were between the entrance and my door, and a few leaves around there. Figured it's not my job to clean the whole place, and I'd just take care of the leaves that were bothering me. Well, one of my neighbors saw me sweeping up in my PJs with bedhead and decided I was one of the cleaners. She saw that I was tying up my garbage bag and folding up my broom and dustpan. They sort of fold together for compact storage. Crazy lady.
Hey, you're not done. Why are you getting ready to leave?
Me. Oh, hi. I am done. I was only sweeping the space between the hallway and my apartment.
Well, that's just lazy. Do your job and sweep the rest of the hallway. It's been filthy for days.
Me. Yeah, I know it's been filthy. That's why I decided to clean the spot between the front door and my door.
You live here? So why do you only clean once or twice a week? If you live here, you should be cleaning every day. Stop being so lazy.
Me. Ma'am, I'm not a cleaner, I'm a resident. The mess in the hallway bothered me, so I cleaned the part that was annoying me. If the rest of it bothers you, then clean it yourself. Karen.
How dare you? I'm going to call body corporate and have you fired and thrown out of this building.
Me. Ma'am, I own this apartment and I own my own business. I do not work for our apartment's body core organization, and I am not a cleaner. I live here. The mess bothered me, so I cleaned it. If the rest of the mess bothers you, then you clean it. I'm not your servant and not going to do it for you.
Well then, why are you cleaning the hallway? You think I'm stupid? No one would clean the hallway unless they were getting paid.
Or unless they don't want to trek dead leaves into their home every time they get back.
Well, if you really are doing this on your own, you won't mind sweeping up the rest of the halls, so do it.
Me. Yeah, no. Had you asked me politely, I might have considered it. But after this exchange, you can either do it yourself or wait for the cleaners to come do it. I'm gonna go back inside and continue cleaning my place. Nice meeting you though. I walked in and she started banging on my door for a while, but I just threw some Disturbed on my stereo and let David Draymond drown out her knocks. Didn't end well though. I went out later to throw away my trash in the dumpster downstairs. This crazy jerk, I suspect, didn't actually see her, but who else would do it, had swept all of the leaves in front of my door. So I grabbed my trusty broom and swept them all further down the hall to her door. Have a feeling we're gonna be playing this game until the cleaners show up. Maybe I'll borrow my buddy's leaf blower and just rev it up outside her door. It is pretty loud.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.